is, but for the Tuesday edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. Today, we're doing Not Your Average Market Insights. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez. With me, as always, the man that I like to call GC because he generates cash flow. He's got genius concepts. He's a great co-host, and his name is Gregg. Go and say hello, Gregg.
Hello, everyone. Great to be with you.
And moderating the chat, helping everybody out, the one that always brings the good news, we got Madison the Magnificent. Say hello, Madison.
Hello, everybody.
And we want to welcome you all right now. If you are hanging out with us, we love the fact that you are here. If you are on the podcast, thanks for bringing us along on your walk or your drive or whatever you're doing. If you are watching on YouTube on like the big screen or on your computer, love to be in front of you right now. And just a little word of advice. If you go to nyais.com, you get to join the fun on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 12:30. We got an awesome community here, and we are about to welcome them with the what's?
The roll call, baby.
The roll call. Let's do this. Ready? Leadoff batter, John Henning of the Not Your Average Investor Show community says, good afternoon, all. Right behind him is Madison the Magnificent with a welcome, everybody. We got the ringmaster, Drew Barnhill. Say it with a good afternoon, all. We got the MVP of the Not Your Average Investor Show community, batting third, Lee Bishop. Hello, everybody. We got Dean Curry at cleanup all the way from Columbus, Ohio, saying good afternoon, all. We got Chris Gonzaga from the illustrious Hudson Valley of New York saying good day to everyone. We got Tony D in the house, Anthony Ditta from Jupiter saying hello, friends. Well, so we got Lydia Filzen, the mother of the godmother of the Not Your Average Investor, of the fairy godmother of the Not Your Average Investor Show. She is the grand godmother.
The grand godmother.
The grand godmother. Lydia Filzen. Good to have you. We got Nadeem Shah in the house with his trademark good morning, good afternoon from the West Coast AWB. Hope everyone is doing fine. We are, buddy. We got Peter James from the illustrious Commonwealth of Virginia saying you guys are awesome. This is the esteemed Sir Peter James. Sir Peter, tip of the cap.
You. Oh man, did I screw that up?
You did, but I feel like
it was a tip of the cap.
Tip of the cap, because I did this thing, and that's your salute you. Tip of the cap to you, sir.
Tip of the cap.
Oh man, we got Nadeem. Did I say Nadeem already? We got Nadeem in the house. He's saying, hey, GC, Pablo, and Madison. Who else? We got Raj Bantu, my ride-along partner on the Not Your Average Investor Show tour bus. Raj, good to have you. Who else we got? Here we go. You ready? Now you can salute. We got Ken and Carolyn Moline, the matriarch and patriarch of the Not Your Average Investor Show's first family. We salute you. We got Aaron O'Neill.
Into the lights.
Aaron, we're working on a nickname for you, but for right now, I like Into the Lights. So we got you. Misty Johnson, past star of the show. She's on saying hi from Denver area. We got the man that everyone knows as Noah Randari saying hello. Good to have you back, Noah. And that's it for the roll call. Today, we got an exciting topic.
Yeah, man.
Something that comes up often, this battle between new construction and renovated properties. There is a lot of misunderstandings around it. There's a lot of myths to be debunked out there in investor land about the difference between new constructions and renovated properties. This is a Not Your Average Investor segment. So if you got anything else, put it in the Q&A. You got an interesting take. I want to hear it. David Blattner checking in. David, good to have you back from Massachusetts. But we're just gonna dive into this idea of the difference between renovated and new construction properties in this market when properties are expensive, right? Prices have gone up. They continue to go up. Cash flows are getting compressed. So people want to know the nuances, GC. And I guess we can just kind of start with, are there pros and cons to both or each?
Yeah, there are pros and cons. And especially for newer investors as well, it's very easy to just gravitate to something that looks better, cleaner, fresher, newer. So a lot of newer investors really gravitate to new construction homes. But it's really interesting, and we'll kind of go through some of the pros and cons. It's really interesting when you look at a new construction home versus a renovated home. If you have this long-term outlook which is based on buying and holding for a full market cycle so that all 5 profit centers can win, you end up largely in the same place, whether it's a new construction home or a renovated home. But the way that you get there is a little bit different. So when I say you end up in the same place, that means that your expected return on investment, whether it's new construction or renovations after you hold on to it for 10 or 20 years, is the same, which is why I love both of them. And I have both of them in my portfolio. But the way that you get there, a little bit different. So we can kind of go through some of the different pros and different cons and components. Is that where you think I should take this?
For you to just walk us down the way we get there. Buddy.
We'll go down this little twisty path where one of the fairy tales tells you to go.
That's good. I want to shout out to Donna Chica, who just chimed in from Bakersfield, California.
All right, Donna. Yeah, and she's a brand new client.
And a new client.
That's right. Her and her husband, Chris. I just saw that the welcome email come through. So welcome here.
All right. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the JWB Not Your Average Investor family out here.
And Donna, let us know if you bought a new construction home or a renovated home as well. So let us know that.
I got a shout out to what up, Hervé Francois from Dirty Jersey. Good to have you in here, Hervé.
Yeah. Well, and we've got so many clients here too. Fire in if you own a new construction home, if you own only renovated homes, if you own a mixture of both of them. I think it'd be great for everybody to kind of learn from the experience of the crowd here, knowing that we have so many successful investors here.
I'll go first. I got 3 rehabs.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Continue.
Kick it off.
All right. Walk us down the path.
the path. So when you are buying a renovated home, what you'll see is that your purchase price will be a little bit lower than if it was a new construction home. So win there, right? Less money out of pocket. It's a win for everybody there. So one of the pros of a renovated home is that it is a lower purchase price generally. Okay. Now your rents are going to be a little bit lower than for a renovated home than if it was a new construction home as well. But your rent to price ratio, the ratio from rents to prices for a renovated home is a little bit better. So that's a pro for renovated homes, your rent to price ratio.
Lower price, lower rents, but in relation to each other, the rent tends to be a little higher than the usual mortgage payment.
Yeah. And it's slight. Like the differences I'm talking about here, we're going to end up in the same place where the expected return is the same. But if you get really granular, you'll see a slightly better rent to price ratio. Okay. So those are wins for renovated homes. Now on some of the other cost components, a little bit of there's some pros and some cons. We'll talk about another pro. So for a renovated home, a pro is that you're going to see less property taxes.
Okay.
And property taxes largely determined by the sales price of the home. Okay. It's not a direct correlation there, but that's a good general rule of thumb. So if you have lower purchase prices on average for renovated homes, you would also have lower property taxes as a general statement. So it's a win there.
Okay.
All right. Now here are some of the cons of a renovated home. Insurance costs. Right. And that's been the topic du jour over the last, call it, 2 years here, insurance rates in Florida. Well, for renovated homes, insurance premiums have gone up dramatically more than for new construction homes. Even before you had this recent increase in insurance costs, renovated homes always had higher insurance costs than new construction homes. And that's just because as building codes have gotten more strict and stringent and building materials and everything else has gotten better and better over the years, the loss for the insurance companies is less for a new construction home than a renovated home in general. And so they pass along that savings to new construction, whereas renovated homes always have a higher insurance premium than new construction does. So it's a little bit in the con category there.
Columns
categories. We're going down windy roads, man. I don't know where these columns are.
Right, I see the path. Keep looking straight forward. You got it.
All right. So for those who are keeping track at home, right? So lower purchase prices, better rent to price ratio, lower property taxes, higher insurance costs for renovations.
Okay.
All right. Then for your maintenance and your vacancy costs, you're going to see some slight differences as well. All right. So for a renovated home, you're going to see slightly higher maintenance costs than if it's a new construction home. So for a renovated home, you would expect 7.5% of the rents that you collect each year. You're going to give that back in the form of maintenance costs. And where do I get that 7.5% from? It's from our data, baby. This isn't made up at JWB. You love
the data flywheel.
The data flywheel. You love the data.
I love that.
I would get a smile out of you when I say data flywheel.
I'm into it, man.
So we have been tracking clients' maintenance costs, vacancy costs, returns. Every client that has purchased a home with us, and there's over 2,700 properties that have been purchased. And we've tracked all of their data since 2011 because we're their property manager and we deliver all of these returns and cash flow and all of these good things to clients. So it really helps us now when we need to understand, do renovated homes have slightly more maintenance than new construction homes? Well, it's not just me saying it or thinking it. It actually does. And it's cool to see that it's not that different too. So if it's 7.5% for maintenance costs estimated on an annual basis for a renovated home. On the new construction side, it's 4%. So you'll see slight difference. Is it something huge and astronomical that is totally going to change why you invest? No, you're going to have slightly higher maintenance costs for a renovated home, which would probably make sense for everybody. And then vacancy costs, even smaller difference there. So vacancy costs for a renovated home, slightly higher. So you'd expect 4% of loss, and that's compared to the rents that are collected each year. So 4% for vacancy cost for a renovated home. For a new construction home, it's 3%. So just very, very small difference there, but that's when we've been able to demonstrate after all of these years. So you take all that together and what you wind up with is you got some pluses, you got some pros, you got some cons, right? You got some higher costs in the form of, insurance cost and slightly higher maintenance cost and vacancy and whatnot. And you end up at the same place in terms of cash flow, right? You end up largely in the same place in terms of cash flow. And then what most people don't think about is, all 5 profit centers, right? Mm-hmm. But when you look at some of the other pros, we get into more and more of all 5 profit centers, you end up in the same place, not just for cash flows, but you end up in the same place for as expected returns. And that's at the end of the day, why I'm a big fan of both. And if you look at my portfolio, I own over 300 rental properties, been investing since 2006 here. The vast majority of the properties that I own are renovated homes. And it's because I've been able to see these properties grow by all 5 profit centers over time. And so I'm able to make this decision strictly based on the expected return on investment, not based on the year built.
Got it. Okay. So love everybody checking in the chat. This is actually a super popular chat topic, right? Just about everybody has a mix of both. I seem to be the outlier that has only renovated ones. Barbara Mershon checked in here saying, hey, it's Barbara Mershon from Denver. Our plan that Greg and I put in place back in 2016 has come into fruition. We now have 10 homes with JWB, a mix of new and rehab. I love that in just 6 years.
It's great to have you here, Barbara. I remember putting the plan together with you. It is just so cool to be sitting here, 6-7 years later down the road, and just to have you here, share your experience, and to know it's working well for you. So thank you.
Love it. So when I look at the things that you just talked about, right, there is some one-time buckets and then there's some ongoing bucket stuff, right? Like there is the purchase price, that's a one-time bucket that then determines the mortgage payment, right? That's an ongoing thing. The rent to price ratio, that is an ongoing kind of like difference that will continue to be there. The maintenance thing, so I see the rent to price ratio. That's like every month that's going to hold kind of true, right? Because you're going to have like a certain rent versus what your mortgage is going to be. The maintenance to me is more of a variable number though, right? Does how does the maintenance part kick in when you say it comes out to the same cash flows? Are you looking at like your average month? Are you looking at the end of the year divided by a number, right? Like how do you calculate the fact that it's the same average cash flow?
How do I calculate that it's the same average cash flow? Well, so the differences in purchase prices here, everything that we're doing here fits into a small box. So when I'm saying this is slightly more, slightly less, it's not like some properties are 150,000 and some are 350,000, right? And it's not like, if that was the case, then you would have wide ranging cash flows. You would have, $25 a month in cash flow to a lot more than that, right? Because as you go up in purchase price,
Mhm.
in order for you to deliver the same return on investment, you have to have more cash flow in order to be able to deliver it.
Yep.
Right. So big picture here, these differences are small and they're by design that way, right? All of our purchase prices fit largely into a box of about 180,000 on the low end to about 280,000 on the high end, right? Our rents, might be, about maybe $1,000 on the low end now, maybe going up to maybe 1,800 on the high end now. And so, and the reason, and we stick in that box as well, because that's where you want to be. You want to be in workforce housing, right? You want to be in those neighborhoods that have low home prices and high rents and high rental demand or surrounded by jobs. So all that being said, don't expect huge differences and don't take it out of context when I say that there's more for this and more for that. Like at the end of the day, you're talking about a difference in cash flows of, maybe $30, right? You might have somewhere between $25 a month in cash flow to like $55 a month in cash flow, or slightly variable there. But to answer your question directly, how do we account for cash flows? We just look at the rental income on a monthly basis. We less out the expenses that happen every single month. We take that cash flow, and then, that's a part of all 5 profit centers. So we use all 5 profit centers to run our return on investment calculation over a 10-year hold. And when you do that, right, that difference of maybe $30 or something like that between, some new construction, some renovations, has a very small impact on your total return on investment over a 10-year hold.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. That makes sense. So I guess when I think about cash flows as an investor, if I'm thinking it's going to make my decision one way or another, I'm really not worried about an extra 25 to 30 bucks a month. What I'm more worried about is like, do I need to have more reserves of cash stashed away for like a one-time incident that may happen?
Gotcha.
Does it affect my thinking there when it comes to new construction versus renovated?
So you're saying, are the one-time pops
Yeah.
larger? Are the swings larger in cash flows for a renovated home versus a new construction home?
I think that would probably be what most people would think if I think people are like me.
Yeah. Well, and the answer is no. Right. So a couple of things go into this, right? Number one, the standard that we renovate our homes to, right? An average JWB renovation is over $40,000. And the average size of a renovated home is smaller too. So, your average renovated home might be, 1,300, 1,400 square feet. Your typical new construction home is larger than that as well. So you're putting $40,000 plus into a home that might be 1,300 square feet. You are really repairing definitely the mechanicals of the home, right? Roof, AC, right? Plumbing, electrical, right? You are largely repairing those almost every single time. Right now, there's exceptions. If it's in perfect shape, we're not going to repair it just to say we repaired it. But you are largely doing those things if you're putting $40,000 plus into, a 1,300 square foot home. So the standard that we renovate to is built so that there is no additional risk of a large property turn for a renovated home versus a new construction home.
Got it.
Right. The reason why you have slightly higher maintenance costs is from all those other things in the house that just break a little bit more often, right? As well as we renovate the home too. I mean, if it's not brand new, it's not gonna, little things are gonna break a little bit more. And that's why you only see a difference of 4% to 7.5%. Right. Over time for 2,700 properties, if you consistently saw these large swings, you would see that number, that variance be larger. So short answer to it, no, we don't see that. Another thing to keep in mind though, right? You could easily go the other way, right? A lot of your large property turn costs are for bigger homes. Right. If you have a bigger home, you have more flooring to repair. You have just more things in the house that are going to cost more money to repair. Yeah. So, and listen, I love big homes too, right? I'm just trying to show the other side of it, right? Big homes get bigger rent, right? And so, all that good stuff as well. But if you're thinking about, well, do renovated homes generally have larger turn costs? We haven't seen any data to show that. Just thinking about it from the numbers perspective, if you have a bigger home and you have more things to repair, new construction homes tend to be bigger homes than renovated homes. So we don't see a difference. There's nothing that I would say is you're going to avoid a property turn or a large property turn because you go to a renovated home or to a new construction home. We just don't see a difference there.
Got it. I mean, that proactively answers the question that Lee put as you were speaking. Lee literally just put in, Greg, do you have statistics on turns for new versus renovation homes? So data flywheel says no.
We just don't see any difference there.
Okay. So at the end of the day, home size, square footage, stuff that needs to get changed, more likely to be correlated than new versus reno, but no data either, right? Or is there data that says that part?
You mean data to show that what type of things are repaired to lead to that 7.5%
size
number?
of home being a more expensive turn?
I don't have the data off the top of my head. I'm sure we could run it. I'm largely just going off of just what would make sense for me. I mean, if you have to replace the flooring in the house is, 1,800 square feet versus a house that's 1,300 square feet. It's just the decision, does the floor need to be repaired or not? It's just going to be more expensive. It's a larger one. But
got it. All right. So if we're to recap right now, new construction versus reno, there is lower price point, slightly lower rent, but higher price to rent ratio.
Mhm.
Therefore, that's an increase in cash flow that then gets eaten into a little bit by a little higher maintenance, a little higher insurance, as Miguel Angel, who joined us recently, just posted in the chat. But Miguel Angel, we mentioned it earlier, so we know we got you, buddy. And then new construction homes have the higher price point, right? So there's going to be a higher mortgage. The rent is higher, but it's not proportionally that much higher, but you save on insurance and you save on some maintenance costs, yet it does not affect the amount of so it essentially creates very similar cash flows within like $20 a month.
Something like that,
which doesn't really move the needle as much long-term when you start looking at all the 5 profit centers. And it also doesn't dictate that you need to have higher cash reserves for a turn, because at the end of the day, the variable on the turn is just the resident, I would assume, is like how the resident.
How long can we keep them in your home? And then, largely it's resident driven.
Got it. Okay, cool. Let's talk about that when it comes from a buying a home, right? We haven't talked about it in a long time, right? But there is buying a home cash, there's buying a home with conventional financing, and then we also talk about non-recourse loans, this idea that you can buy a home in your retirement account, and yet it has to be maintained inside of, like, you can't mix funds, right? Like pre-tax, post-tax dollars. Are there any special considerations when it comes to buying a home with a non-recourse loan to hold in your IRA or your 401k when it comes to new versus renovated homes?
There's really no difference in terms of a new construction home versus a renovated home for the property going into your retirement account. However, when you put a property into your retirement account, reserves become an even bigger deal for you, right? Reserves are a big deal no matter how you're purchasing the home, because we want to make sure you're set up for success and ready for that rainy day. But when it's outside of your retirement account, you can continue to contribute money to that reserve account if you need it. Let's say that you put $3,000 in your reserve account, and then you have a higher than normal property turn cost of $4,000. Well, if it's outside of your retirement account, you can just put that extra $1,000 into your account and pay for that property turn. In a retirement account, you have limits to the amount that you can contribute. And sometimes those limits are relatively small. Like, I think it's about $6,000 a year for an IRA. Sometimes they're larger, and we can work with you to set up the entity the right way and the vehicle the right way. Sometimes it can be more, it can be upwards of $50,000. But that's dependent on a lot of things. So sometimes you might be in an IRA and you might be limited to only contributing, let's just say $6,000 into that account. And you maybe use that $6,000 to go invest somewhere else, right? So you contributed $6,000 for that year, you invested it somewhere, and then you have a property turn that might come in to play. new construction or renovation. If you don't have that reserve account and that money there, you can't just say, hey, listen, I just made a nice bonus at work. Let me just throw a little bit more into that retirement account, reserve account. You just can't do it. And so that is something that we work with clients to avoid. It is very important that we do that, to work with you to make sure that we avoid that, because that's something I don't have a solution for you. Like, I can't rewrite the contribution limits for the IRAs. Like, if you can't pay for the renovation that has to happen, you know, that's a really challenging place to be that we don't want to be.
So is there a rule of thumb of like holding X% more reserves if you are doing it inside of an IRA versus, you know, the idea that like about 6 to 10?
Yeah. So for us, it's, 3 to 6 months is what we would tell people to prepare for. 3 to 6 months of expenses is what I would tell anybody to prepare for a property that you're purchasing, and just keep that in your reserve account. I'd probably double that when it comes to, a property in your retirement accounts. Right. And over time, as you build more properties into your retirement accounts, you have more diversification of assets in your retirement accounts. You don't need to contribute, 12 months of reserves per property forever. But when you have one property, for sure. When you have 2 properties, sure. When you have 3 properties, yeah, probably, and so, because you just can't get stuck. Well, if having a turn cost or having maintenance cost without having money in your reserve account, if it's within an IRA or any retirement account.
Got it. So when you say costs like 3 to 6 months, you're talking about like mortgage plus a calculation of maintenance plus a calculation of property management plus insurance and taxes kind of thing. Like whatever the outright costs are without any contribution from the tenant, from the resident.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay. Yep. Assume that you're not getting any income for that month. How many months could you technically survive within your reserve account to cover that loss? So simply, I just keep it. It's about $1,000 per property if you just want to use kind of a rule of thumb based on what the market is right now. So, for your first rental property, if you only have one, plan 3 to 6 months, $3,000 to $6,000 in a reserve account right off the bat, and then you won't be surprised, most likely, if something unforeseen should happen, because what we're trying to avoid is you having to dip into your personal bank account to solve a rental property problem. If I can just contain all of the, cash flow swings for you, both positive and negative, and keep it in this reserve account for you, you're going to be fine. Right. What we're trying to avoid is you having to go into your personal bank account to bring money for the things that you wanted to do, the vacation you wanted to go on, the dinner you wanted to take your wife to, and pull that into your reserve account. That's when we start getting frustrated and emotional and getting upset at the property. So that's what we're trying to avoid.
Got it. And Lee says that his solo 401k has $15K in reserves for his properties, for his 5 houses that he has in there.
Perfect.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And that's great because he's bought those over time. He worked up to 5 properties, and you can see that reserve amount per property can come down once you reach a certain level of diversification. Because what are the chances that Lee has $15,000 worth of expenses all at one time?
Yeah.
Right. It's just very unlikely,
Makes sense. All right. Miguel Angel's got a question. Probably an advantage of a renovated home versus new is that renovated are in nicer locations. Am I right? Is that accurate?
No, that is a great question. I'm really glad you asked, but no, I don't see that. There's, the neighborhoods that we're in are the same, whether they're new construction or renovations. There's 4 major neighborhoods in Jacksonville that we are just in and we dominate. In fact, if everybody wanted to go and kind of check out the neighborhoods and see the similarities, whether it's a new construction home or renovation, you can go to jwbinventory.com. You can just start. Those are all of our featured properties. Those are our properties of the week. And you can see, and you'll see some that are in that are new construction homes, and they are in the same neighborhoods as some renovated homes, and vice versa. So no, type of neighborhood is not really, or call it niceness of neighborhood, is really not an indication of new construction or renovations.
Yeah, I mean, I know that when we've done the properties of the week, the few times that we've like taken the Google map out and like walked around, you may have built a brand new property and there's like a vacant lot, maybe there's a trailer, a couple lots down, then there's another old home, like
Absolutely.
it seems like y'all, JWB, since you pick these same neighborhoods, it's infill lots. It's kind of like the differentiation, right? Like you are filling in land and you're bringing new properties out of the ground as demand is required.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really.
I'm really glad you brought that up. Most people think when you are buying build to rent or new construction inventory, they are in subdivisions or things of that nature. That is not the way that we do it. It's one of our secret sauces is that we're able to go and we're the largest infill builder in Jacksonville. So that's how we're able to create so many opportunities for clients to own turnkey rental properties. It's because we're not out there trying to build 100-unit subdivisions. We're in neighborhoods that were built in the 1940s and 50s and 60s, which sometimes turn into renovated homes for us. And then sometimes we are just taking that lot that was never built on in that pre-established neighborhood, and we're putting a brand new construction home around, or we're putting a brand new construction home there, and it's surrounded by homes that are built in the 40s, 50s, or 60s. So the same type of neighborhood, no matter if yours happens to be a new construction home or if yours happens to be a renovated one.
Got it. All right. David Blander's got a good follow-up question to that. Do the newer homes attract residents who have better tendency to pay rent without issues? Is there any data that supports different quality of residents in a new home versus reno?
No, really, you don't see that big of a difference, right? You have residents that can't afford to pay a little bit more. So that's great. But again, the difference here is not that much, right? We're talking, I gave you the wide range of 1,000 to 1,800. That's a pretty wide range, but really it's like, you'd pay maybe $50 a month more to rent a new construction home versus that same home on that same street that wasn't new construction. So it's not like it's a different type of economics for that individual. It's nothing noticeable as far as the type of length of resident stay or really anything there. I mean, you would kind of see it in vacancy cost a little bit. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the difference between a renovated home and a new construction home is 1% of vacancy cost, right? So if residents left more often and there was more vacancy, you would start to see it show up in vacancy cost. Vacancy cost for a new construction home is 3% of the rents that you collect. And for a renovated home, it's 4%. So not really noticeable here.
That 3% or 4% of vacancy costs, is that over 10 years? Is that over 30 years? Like, what's the IRR of that? Like, because if I understand it correctly, I think, if I'm renting a brand new home and I'm there for 2 years and I leave, still looks pretty new. Right. Like somebody coming in is like, oh, this is pretty new stuff. Right. If I'm in this home and like I've had 3 tenants over the last 10 years, 3 residents over the last 10 years, 10 years later, is that still a new construction home? Does that still apply to that? Like when that 1% difference in vacancy costs, what timeline are we talking about here?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that you're talking about there. So we'll kind of break it down a little bit. But as far as the vacancy cost, I mean, that is calculated on an annual basis. So when I'm throwing around numbers like 3% vacancy or 4% vacancy, you just take the rents that are collected that year, multiply it times 3%. And that's how much JWB or whoever you're buying your property from should tell you to set aside and say, hey, listen, on an annual basis, this is how much you're going to give back as far as rent that's not collected because of vacancy. And for a renovated home, it's just slightly more. It's 4%. So now how does that relate to a 10-year IRR or return on, internal rate of return, return on investment? We kind of use those interchangeably. Well, that would be factored in on an annual basis. And then over those 10 years, you would see a slightly less income from the renovated home because it had slightly higher vacancy costs. So the way that would show up on your IRR or your return on investment would be slightly less cash flow. If I'm just singling out just that line item, it'll be slightly less cash flow due to vacancy cost. But keep in mind, you're going to have more cash flow in other places because you have lower property taxes and your purchase price is lower and your rent to price ratio is higher. So, but that's how it would show up. If you have a higher vacancy cost, it would be slightly less income of rents, and that would hit your 10-year return on investment schedule, and that would slightly drop that down. But the effect on that is just way, way small.
Got it. Cool. And I think that I'm probably speak for everybody when it's like, it sounds like there isn't a big difference.
There's not, I mean, and that's why
from the experience, right? Like, and I had a feeling that this show would go like this, but I think it's valuable, right? Like, I think the idea of, because a bunch of great questions right now in the Q&A, we're going to get to them. We're going to continue peppering you with questions.
Right. Yeah.
And I think the idea that you're going to continue to answer not a big difference is really valuable to hear, because, it's going to land for somebody, the context, right? If somebody is like struggling between, do I need to wait and get a new construction home, or do I just get into a renovated home because I have these beliefs? Like, bring on the questions, right? Let's either break those beliefs or reinforce them, and keep testing them. But I get the feeling that it's going to be a lot of like, not that big of a difference.
And you're 100% right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, so I started to invest in 2006. I mean, the idea of building new construction homes for rental properties was not even a twinkle in my eye at that time, right? I mean, Wall Street had no clue that, 15 years later, they were going to be building out build to rent communities, and that builders would be partnering with Wall Street to build communities to hold on to rental properties as a builder. I mean, that's what's happening now. So this has evolved so much. Yeah. But in the beginning, for us in 2006, I didn't even consider that you could build a new construction home as a rental property. So I bought a lot of rental properties, all of the ones in the beginning and all the way through probably, 2011, 2012, 2013, the vast majority of them, they're all renovations that are in my portfolio, right? I own over 300. The vast majority are renovated homes. And so I've been able to see the 5 profit centers work for those homes that I bought the longest time ago perform just as well as the 5 profit centers for the new construction homes that I've added to my portfolio over the years. And I've had those new construction homes for a while now too. I mean, I probably started putting them into my portfolio 2012, 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. So it's, it's been 6-8 years now, somewhere around there. So I've been able to see them both perform, and they perform well. So a lot of times I'll get the question, well, all right, Greg, so, the differences between cash flows are really non-existent or marginal at best between renovations and new construction. But let's talk about growth. A new construction home is definitely going to appreciate more over time. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't work that way, right? It doesn't work that way. New construction homes and renovated homes over a full market cycle appreciate largely the same, right? If you knew what area was going to blow up and become this major town center, and that happened to be near a home that was renovated, or if that happened to be near a home that was new construction 10 years ago, they're both going up in value. It's not like one appreciates more after holding it for 10 or 20 years. I always remind people, if you're in this to buy and hold and you're buying this new construction property right now, I think it's awesome because, I love them and, I love renovations, but let's just accentuate the positive. You bought this brand new construction home. In 10 years, you're not going to call that new construction anymore. In 20 years, you're not going to call that new construction. So if you go back and you look at how homes have appreciated that are 10 years and 20 years old from today, right? They all got roughly 20% home price appreciation last year and the years before. So, if you are flipping homes, if you're buying it today to sell tomorrow, you will still retain a premium for a new construction home. Mm-hmm. But that's not why you're here. That's not how you maximize all 5 profit centers for rental property investing. So that's why I go back to what I've just lived out and what I've seen for 2,700 properties that we have managed now for 17 years. And there's really no difference. So when folks come, to our team and they say, well, I'm really excited about this, but I really want new construction, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, to be quite honest.
Got it. I want to key in on this thing that you just said, that appreciation does not differ for the investor experience between a renovated and a new construction home. And I think that that's really important to understand, because when we talk about the 5 profit centers, we know that the reason why people come to Jacksonville is because they understand that the biggest piece of the pie in the 5 profit centers is appreciation.
Right.
And Jacksonville appreciates twice as fast as, or like twice as much, or like 50% more than the next.
Let's call it like 1,000%.
Let's call it
like
a
a billion
let's
percent
let's
or so.
just say it crushes Cleveland. Than the next cash flowing market. I think that that's a important thing to think about, right? Like from a couple different perspectives. Just what are we here for? Are we here for long-term wealth creation? Then we got to really think about appreciation. And B, that tells me that what controls, what, if you want to affect appreciation, you're talking about macroeconomic forces, right? Like local macroeconomic forces, which lends itself to the idea that you want a vertically integrated provider.
Yeah.
That's working on the neighborhood level, and that is adding, strip malls with cornerstone tenants that add a supermarket, that are investing kind of like a Publix does, which again increases the value prop of this like vertically integrated approach that you guys have pioneered. So I just think that that's important.
Put it this way. So we've been able to demonstrate that JWB clients have earned 79% more home price appreciation than the average Jacksonville investor, right? Why have they been able to earn 79% more? Is it because they all bought new construction? Is it because they all bought renovations? No, it's because they're JWB clients. It's because we put them in those neighborhoods, and we have actively invested in those neighborhoods for the last 17 years. And it's because we own over 300 rental properties ourselves, which are in those neighborhoods. So we have this huge incentive to do all of these things that actually drive the economics for better home price appreciation over the years. So if you're really looking for an angle to get more home price appreciation and better results from all 5 profit centers, choose a vertically integrated provider who has their money there with you.
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah. So whether Jacksonville or Kansas City or wherever you're going to do it, right? Like that's really the question, not new construction versus reno. Is this provider working on making the neighborhood better to increase the likelihood of my appreciation versus the other local neighborhoods as well?
Exactly.
Cool. All right. That's a great takeaway. Let's answer it. Let's jam on a couple more questions here. Ken Moline, the patriarch of the first family.
We salute you.
We salute you. Would it be wise for JWB to move in a new resident after renovation so that the rent is established at current market rate? This would benefit the new owner, who would have a more realistic rental rate, which would allow a lower down payment in the loan processing negotiation.
Can you keep that one up there? I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding this. So would it be wise for JWB to move in a new resident after renovation so that the rent, so he's thinking about after a property turn, so that the rent is established at current rate. Okay, so what Ken is asking about is there, when the home has already been purchased by a client, there's been a resident who's been living in that home, it then undergoes a property turn, which means that resident moves out. Is it always better to move a new resident in versus keeping the same resident there? So, as with the standard response for today's show, actually it doesn't matter, because whenever we go and renew the lease with an existing resident, we bring them up to that same market rent. So whether that's a new resident that comes in and moves in and pays market rent, or it's that existing resident that then renews that lease for us, they are paying that same market rent. So the effect would be the same as far as loan negotiations or debt to income ratio. However, I should point out that it is much more in your advantage to renew that same resident because you don't have the fees and the costs that come along with a resident moving out. So it is definitely to your advantage to renew that resident at that higher market rent, which is what we do.
There you go. All right. Miguel Angel's got another question. He says, what about hidden expenses in renovated homes? Do you have any statistics of occurrence? Like, is there any kind of like statistic that shows that there is like more likely to be some kind of random out of the ordinary thing in a renovated home versus a new construction home?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I would point to that maintenance expense percentage, right? I would lump that in as the reason why you're going from 4% maintenance costs for a new construction home to 7.5% for a renovated home. There's just, sometimes it's an old house and we make sure that you're in great rental shape, but things are a little bit more likely to break along the way. And that's what I would call those hidden expenses.
Got it. And then Miguel is also saying in the chat that he's from his own experience, he believes that it's, your experience has more to do with luck than renovated versus new construction. Is there truth to that? There is kind of like a randomization of like having a person in a home that you can never account for some variable, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, we follow the same standards, whether it's a new construction home or a renovated home. We prepare that resident to limit maintenance and limit vacancy costs. We prepare the home to limit maintenance and vacancy costs. I always tell people, listen, when you buy a JWB home, you have materials in there that are expecting to get beat up. Right. We build these homes or we renovate these homes with these materials that can withstand a family living there for 4 years, 5 years beyond that. Right. So we're going in expecting these things. So we're preparing it there. At the end of the day, though, right, sometimes bad things happen to good residents. Sometimes residents made poor choices, even though they didn't have to. And sometimes that will lead to a larger property turn or an extended vacancy period. But the chances of that happening are the same for a renovated home versus a new construction home. Really just don't see much of a difference there.
There you go. So you're right, Miguel. Dean Curry's got a question. Says, probably not the right show to ask this. Wrong, Dean Curry. This is the perfect show to ask this. Just going to throw that out there. But since we are talking about non-recourse loans, I have a question. I have 7 doors in my solo K, pre-tax. I am considering moving them into a Roth product. I understand I have to pay tax on these transactions, but I assume that tax rates will be higher at my retirement age than they are now. Thoughts?
Well, I love the question. I think this is the perfect show to talk about things like this. Of course, nobody knows the answer to your question there as far as what tax rates are going to be at retirement versus now. A lot of that would be, what are your tax rates now? Which I know you don't need to share now, but I would take that into consideration. If there's, I would say most people who are in their prime earning years would think the opposite. So most people who are in their prime earning years would think that at retirement age, that their tax bracket would actually be lower, even if you are somebody who thinks that as a country, we are going to tax ourselves more down the line, just simply because, your prime earning years, you're taxed the most. So most people would probably think the opposite. I'm not sure exactly what Dean's tax bracket is there, but there's certainly a school of thought that listen, we're just going to continue to tax ourselves a lot more. So if you're maybe not in your prime earning years right now, but you're in your middle earning years, or you're either on the lower end of your earning years, then all things held constant, you might face a higher tax bracket down the road. So I think it's largely determined on your personal situation and your view of if we're going to continue to tax ourselves later on. It's a little bit easier if you are in a prime earning year right now. You're probably paying more in taxes than you would later on, just simply because this is your time to shine, earn income. You're going to get taxed the most.
Knowing a little bit about Dean on a personal level, I know that Dean recently, I think in the last 2 years, had a liquidity event, right, from a business that he built.
Yeah.
And now he's on to another chapter, right? So maybe you can opine on that. Like if he had just been building up this business, had a liquidity event, now he's kind of on the other side of that. Is that a fairer consideration based on him being?
Yeah, let's just create the scenario that he had a huge liquidity event and he paid the taxes on that, right? And then, post that right now, there hasn't been a whole lot of taxes that he's had to pay, or he hasn't been in one of the higher tax brackets just for this moment in time. Then this might be a great time to pay the taxes on the solo 401k pre-tax and move that into a Roth. So yeah, that might be a great thing to do. But again, Dean, either talk to our team, talk to a professional as well, get some more insight there. A lot of this is playing the what if game, and you're going to be right one way or the other. So
yeah. All right, cool. Great question, Dean. I love it, man. Chris Gonzaga. Illustrious.
From the illustrious. I think we need to have something. I mean,
I need to visit that valley.
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking, I don't know what else we can do. We tip the cap, we salute, but I mean, it's illustrious.
It's illustrious.
I mean, I feel like we have to have something.
Just picture this lush flowing valley with maybe like a
illustrious
pterodactyl flying through. All right, here we go. Chris Gonzaga asks, market rent is determined by what factors?
Market rent is determined by the market, which we have a great handle on. Chris is a client, but for anybody who's not a client yet, when we bring you on and we are recommending properties to you, we actually show you a map of all of our footprint here in the Jacksonville market. And it's kind of like that old board game Risk, which is where you have all those little dots and pieces and you're just overtaking countries. It's kind of like what, it's turned out to be here for JWB's footprint in Jacksonville. And the way that this relates to setting things like market rent is that, within like a quarter mile, there's a really good chance that there are 5, 10, 20, 30 other properties that we actively manage, that we are leasing right now, that is being rented right now. And we see what those rent rates are. So we have this huge advantage to make sure that we can set the right rents, set market rents, and then deliver on those rents. A lot of people don't think about this, but, a lot of people make a determination on a property evaluation. And you got to realize that turnkey rental property provider has this huge incentive to put pie in the sky rent numbers there for you. Because if they miss by like $25, your cash flows go down significantly. Your overall return on investment goes down significantly. If they miss by like $25, it's hard to be that accurate. It's hard to be that good. You have to have a commitment to a data flywheel. Smile. Got to smile. Yeah. You have to have a commitment to a data flywheel. You have to have significant experience in one set area so you know what you're doing. And then you have to have a commitment to under promising and over delivering. That's the only way that you hit your numbers every single time. So we have all three of those. And, the fun part is just seeing the impact that we have on those neighborhoods. It's JWB country there.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I think of the word, Nadim's putting JWB manages 4,749 homes in Jacksonville. I think of the words network effect, right? Like the idea that having the network effect of where you are allows you to operate at another level, be it the data flywheel, be it the neighborhood improvement stuff, be it the long-term bets into downtown. Mm-hmm. And that's just a very powerful term for basically mass adoption of something that develops its own momentum. Yeah. Which is another flywheel kind of terminology. All right. Miguel Angel has a question here. Having the permissions delays, is that JWB are renovating? Okay. Having the permissions, the permits. I think having the permits being delayed, is that JWB are renovating more now than in the past? How has that changed with time?
Great question, Miguel Angel. If you look at the percentage of construction, whether that's new construction or renovations over time, in the beginning in 2006, it was 100% renovations. Through 2011, it was 100% renovations. In 2011, we started to build new constructions. And so we did that slowly in the beginning. There was about 40 homes that we took down and built these brand new construction homes. If you look over the last couple of years specifically, it is so much higher a percentage of new construction than renovations. And again, that isn't because I love new constructions more than renovations. It's what the market is bearing. So for all of us, we've heard that there's just a huge lack of supply in the marketplace. And what they're talking about is a lack of existing inventory or homes that you could renovate and turn into rental properties for us. So because the market has an extreme lack of supply of existing inventory, our percentage of activity has been much lower as far as the percentage of construction, right? It's much lower. So it's probably 75% new construction now. It's probably 25% renovations, just ballparking it. So yeah, and that's, you think about it, if we didn't build brand new construction, right? If, the reason why we're the country's only true vertically integrated, turnkey rental property company, there's other companies out there that do property management in-house. They're few and far between, but there's other companies like that. There's no other company that I know of that has all of those things and an innovation department. Right. So that's why we make the claim that we are the country's only true vertically integrated turnkey investment company. Well, that comes into play because, having available inventory right now is such a luxury. And if we kind of like wrap up the show here, it's like what I would urge people to do is to invest not with your eyes, right? Invest based on the numbers, right? Of course, find the right team and all that good stuff, but invest based on the numbers. Don't look at the picture as much because availability of a property right now is the most important thing. When inventory is incredibly low, like it is, availability is the most important thing. And new construction homes and renovations, you know, if they're available and they meet your criteria and they meet your return on investment criteria, those are things to be considered. But I did want to make the point that, you know, new construction was never something we intended to do. It was something that we saw a market opportunity in 2011. If we hadn't figured that out, if our innovation department hadn't figured that out, we would only have 25% of the homes available for our clients over the past couple of years. Like, new construction has supplemented, has become the biggest contributor to our inventory. And that's why a lot of other companies and a lot of other markets don't have inventory. They don't build new construction. It's not even a possibility. So all that to be said, right? When you're thinking about making an investment, find the right team, right? After you find the right team, you know, make sure they operate in a growth market like JWB does. And then when you do that, choosing the property should be the easiest and the most fun part. But at no point along the way, just don't give yourself a limitation that it has to be a new construction home or it has to be a renovation, right? You can make better decisions and you can get all the way to the end of a full market cycle and benefit from both.
So if we go to the scoreboard today on the battle royale of new construction versus renovated homes, we have lower price, higher price to rent ratio, lower rents, higher maintenance on the side of the renovation. On the side of the new construction, you have lower homeowners insurance, lower maintenance, higher price, higher rents, but lower price to home ratios. At the end of the day, you go to the judges. It's a split decision. It's a tie. What matters
Switzerland.
Yeah, we're Switzerland. What matters more is the same things that we have been talking about here, right? Like the operator that can definitely deliver on that piece of paper over the next 30 years, the market that has the dynamics that you are looking for, right? For us, long-term buy and hold investors, we know that appreciation is our play here in Jacksonville. Whatever market you're looking at, make sure that that's incentivized. And then the property, you know, is like, pick one. Availability is big right now.
Yep.
And stick to the plan. This was another good one, man. I love these. I love these not your average market insights. I love the extra participation that we get from our community. Really want to thank you for being here. We had another close to 40 people here today, just throwing in great questions. Miguel Angel held a clinic on European rental property investing in the chat that we didn't even mention.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, but it was really, really cool. And if you're watching on Facebook, you're listening on the podcast, you're watching on YouTube, we invite you to join us at nyais.com or go to the Not Your Average Investor Show Facebook group and hang out with the rest of these folks if you can't make it one of these days. But we want to have you part of the crew. So Thursday, JWB Rental Week. We got a surprise guest. We're not going to announce who it is yet because it's a surprise even to me. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. Hope to see you on Thursday. I just really appreciate everybody that spends an hour of their Tuesday to hang out here with us. This is a lot of fun for us to get to do, and you're really the one driving these shows. So thank you. GC, I'll give you last words.
I love you guys. Appreciate you guys giving us this platform. It's fun just, you know, coming away from a holiday weekend and just being super fired up just to spend some time with everybody here. I see the group chat continuing to be firing. More and more folks are saying hello and being welcomed into the community. More and more folks showing up, and Pablo and I just have more and more fun. So thank you guys for making our jobs awesome.
I'll leave you with this. Illustrious. It means adjective, well-known, respected, and admired for past achievements. You know what it's not? It's not average.
Well done.
See you next time.